a few seconds for it to actually begin, because sometimes it seems to not start at the same time, slightly out of sync. But there you go.
Just
Welcome to your awakening. Please take heart as your reality is adjusted.
Yes, forgot the mute button. Welcome back again, folks. Good morning, global gulag and all that malarkey. Yeah, I did wait for a bit, Pete, in case you came back.
no, it's all right, Cookie. Yeah, I left my camera on. Yeah. Don't worry. So they've all seen me before. So yeah, I need a haircut, as you can tell.
You see that the sun is still shining. I have ended up drawing the curtains here just because I know it's going to be over the horizon soon and it will get really dark, so I'll put the light on instead. I have the light. I have the light. Right, try and get me screens organised. I was rushing again, as per usual. The usual kind of kerfuffle at the beginning, because I'm so amateur. I'm so unprofessional. That's the point. It's not meant to be professional. Get on with it. All right, welcome back again, folks, to another edition of Solid Excalibre. This is episode 40. We got as far as episode 40, 40, maybe, whatever connections. I'm sure somebody can do some gematria magic with those numbers, like you can do with most numbers. And hello to everyone in the chat room. Thanks for joining. Simon Boyle, Krishna, and that's me, and that's Gary, and Neo Dog, hello, and Mana Small, hello, and So South, hello, and Stewie, hello. And let me check, I've got things that is all going. Yeah, YouTube is actually working. I was informed by somebody that I've known for a few years now, several years in the online environment, who's been subscribed to my channel for years. And then when he come to look for some of the episodes recently, he said it wasn't showing up, and it turned out he'd been unsubscribed without his knowledge. So YouTube is active in its usual kind of shadow banning effect at the moment. So be aware, if there's somebody that you regularly have listened to or whatever, and you might not have noticed that they haven't been uploading, or you think they haven't been uploading. Maybe have a check through your subscriptions and see if magically you've been unsubscribed from somebody. Yeah? There's a lot of that going on YouTube at the moment, and it's going back a few months now. But I did listen to a few big channel YouTubers, people who've got hundreds of thousands of subscribers, if not million plus subscribers, talking about that kind of process of how they've looked at their own, they've been monitoring their own channel analytics, and they can see how the number of subscribers has never actually truly risen, because YouTube seems to be going through this weird glitch where old subscribers get automatically shed from the channel to counteract the numbers of new subscribers that are subscribing to the channel. So it enables YouTube to quell certain channels or make it look like they don't have as many subscribers as they actually do. Basically stemming the number progression a little bit, quelling it. But yeah, all of that stuff is pretty much of a muchness now in this environment. This is YouTube. This is the most relied upon platform for video content on the internet still at the moment, unfortunately. And that means that, of course, they will try and dominate it. They have turned it into the new version of television. They have brought in all the big name corporations and media companies to dominate it. So it is no longer YouTube as it was originally started. It's nothing like that at all anymore. Now it is very much a not so much completely dominated, but it's heavily dominated by the main players anyway. So you're getting pretty much the same kind of media as you would get on any other platform kind of service, the television or newspaper or whatever. Over the years, I've watched the YouTube feed go from, because I've got quite a few subscribed, I subscribe to quite a few channels, I should say, a few hundred. I think the last count was about 500 or 600 channels I'm subscribed to. And I know a lot of them don't upload content, if at all, anymore, or they don't upload much anymore. But I'm just sort of reminiscing about how YouTube used to show me a live updated stream of new uploaded content, and I'd see just so many different names from different content creators. You get a good range of selection of the kind of things that are being put online. And now when I log into YouTube, the stream is dominated by the standard mainstream media news channels that I've been subscribed to for years, who used to be a sparse population in that stream. Now they are 70 to 80% of the content of that stream. Almost as if Google wants me to think that all those channels that I'm subscribed to don't upload any content. Funny, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway, yeah, turned it into the usual media. But this week last week I did say that this week I would not be doing the usual monologue. I sort of said hello and introduced and had a little sort of comment on the state of YouTube. But other than that, because I know time is of more of a restriction at the moment for Society of the Spectacle Gary over in Spain. So if there's any subjects or any stuff you want to talk about, go for it.
Go on, Gary. Is he there?
He's probably gone out for a smoke now while I've been waffling. He's probably thinking, oh yeah, he's off. I've got a good hour. I could go out and have a chill and just watch the sunset.
No, I'm sure he's there. We'll be back in a sec.
He'll be back in a minute when he's ready. He can take as much time as he wants, talk about whatever subjects he wants, he thinks are worth bringing up. There is various things I've made.
I see your title anyway, yeah.
A small amount of notes, just in the usual kind of fashion that I do. I've been watching what's been going on during the week, and obviously I've got stuff that I'm involved in my own life. And when I say watching what's going on during the week, it's not like I'm a passive observer just watching everything happen. But the point is, he's sort of looking at that big media outpouring that he's trying to direct the public's consciousness onto certain things, and he's trying to manipulate the public using certain methods of manipulation via language and symbols. Symbols are language, the symbolic language.
Yeah.
So things like the meme wars and the BLM versus EDL, it's war of the acronyms.
Yeah.
And it's all this craziness. And I know it's going back several years now. I think I've talked in the past, and I know I've said it multiple times, but whatever. To create a fascistic state, which potentially the way they're going to take us to is beyond just fascism or communism. Thinking that it's one or the other is keeping you stuck in the political left-right paradigm, which is what the system wants primarily. So it's quite happy for people to say, oh, it's communism, oh, it's fascism, and defining it in that left-right political perspective. But where they want to take us to is far beyond that. But to get there, they've got to create this dialectic between the two polar opposites of the political left and right. So even though going back several years, there wasn't that much in the political spectrum that was popular on the right of the political spectrum. But then we began to get things like the alt-right media, the new conservatism and
New
the
Labour.
rise. Yeah, well, it was to counter that, wasn't it? It was literally a stepping stone that led to the new right. And we had the rise in popularity of people like Farage and Trump, the various sort of right-leaning political figures. And for years, I talked about the process of how they make the left look more powerful and dangerous. So they want most of the public to be convinced that where we're going is communism, so that then most of the public will run to the right. And that will lead to a rise in populism as a political ideology. It will lead to nationalism. It will eventually lead to fascism. And now we're at a stage where we're witnessing the emanation of that fascism, because even though they call themselves Antifa are perpetuating an ideology and an illogical construct that they can dominate fascism by using fascism against fascism, because that's what they're doing. Yeah, if you're anti-fascist, then you should be more anarchist, not left-leaning, believing that big government can dominate people such that you're no longer allowed to talk about things that are considered nationalistic. That level of censorship and control is fascism. So the Antifa are completely disonanced in the sense that they think they're doing something to protect the rights and equality of all peoples, but they're actually implementing a fascistic ideology against other fascists. But now we're witnessing the emanation of that dialectic of the two Hegelian sides being thrown against each other physically on the streets. So you've got BLM versus EDL here in the UK. I know it's slightly different in other countries, but there are right-wing political leaning groups in other countries that represent the same thing as the EDL here in the UK. But it's perfect for what the system wants, because now the public's attention is fixated on that literal physical fight between the two polar opposite sides. And, if you're one of those, unfortunately, stuck in the middle kind of people, you don't agree completely with either side, and you're sort of like, what the hell's going on here? But no, you're just going to get steamrolled over by these two sides attacking each other. You can see little sort of hints at that in some of the footage from places like Trafalgar Square, where you can see that there are bystanders that are just sort of getting dragged into the physical conflict because they happen to be standing in the wrong place at the wrong time, kind of thing.
At a train station.
Yeah. You're in the wrong place, mate. So, unfortunate that you're getting steamrolled over by a bunch of people that want to fight each other. Because that's really all it comes down to. They're still in the kind of mindset where they think that punching each other in the street is going to prove them right. And I mean correct, not right, left, as in the
It's
political.
just like football hooligans, which is what they've mainly recruit a lot of this lot from, on the right, from football fans and that sort of thing.
For a number of years now, since I think it could be argued quite well that since New Labour under Tony
Blair.
Under Blair, that was the creation of that perception of the dominant left and the danger that it will lead us towards communism. And for the last decade plus, we've had various talking heads talking about how, we're going into a future of communism. Everything's going to be communism. And they portray that political ideology as the danger, as the phantom menace. Whereas the way it works with their political game playing and them playing the chess game of setting us against each other, they want a rise of the right. in the political world. So they create the left and make it look like the left is bigger and more dangerous than it really is, so that people gravitate to the right, and then they can have their conflict, because you need two people to make a fight. You can't have a boxing match with only one fighter.
What I would mention is that the Blair election, voting turnout got down, was dropping year by year to 59%. And the last election of Obama was like down to about 56% as well, and that is when the extremism started. So that lurch to the right and the left is more to scare the opposition into voting than to actually sure, you say populist vote, but people are voting out of fear more than anything, It's the way to get them back. Of course, we had Brexit as well, didn't we? It got everybody back to the polls. Everybody fell for that, So they have the mandate, If it goes below 50%, you won't see the word mandate on the BBC, but it should be there, They should be mentioning something like that, What happens if the vote actually goes under 50%? Does the government still have a mandate?
According to their own sort of, professed rule structure that they create this so-called democracy out of, no, because there is no longer a majority. Democracy is supposed to be about the majority. So if the 49% or less, there's no longer a voting majority then, is there? The majority are saying they don't want that political system, because 51% are saying we're not getting involved, fuck off.
Yeah. And organically grow your own new way of just doing things by just doing your own, getting on with it. I think. So what you do. Like you said, was it last week or the week before, that people will just get on with it. They do get on with it. The system's run. You don't need a government to tell you what to do every day. We just get on and get our stuff done, and whatever we're doing, whatever we do in our lives. Go on.
But there are still rules.
Well, of
in
course,
the sense of
yeah.
like we've often talked about, anarchy as an ideology does not mean chaos and destruction. Even though the system repeatedly miseducates people into that perception. But what it actually means is just no rulers, no individuals that act as a ruler.
But then we've got to start right back, haven't we, to the teaching of the children, bring up a good generation of people who don't guru follow.
You've got to have a foundation of a good moral structure, which is why, and I know we talked about this many times in one way or another, which is why I agree with a lot of elements that come out of the religious structures about family and moral conduct and things like that, and also out of the conservative kind of political ideology, which is the same thing. They care about the family unit, that kind of creation of good citizenry. If you're going to have a societal structure which has some form of governance over it, then you have in effect a citizenry, and you preferably want well-behaved citizens, so a good moral conduct. That's what I was going to say about the rules. Even though there's no rulers, if everyone is ruling themselves, there is still a rule that you are all following.
Or harm or loss again,
Exactly right. Some of those are really basic and easy to understand and easy to impart to the younger generations, that cause no harm or loss. Don't go around killing each other. Don't go around stealing off each other. And then you'll have a better life, because you live in a communal group where you're not attacking each other constantly. You'll be able to share the environment. And I know people go, oh, it's communism, whatever.
I think the family unit, in fact, if you look at it historically, it may be that they were pushing the family unit to actually break up the communities that they've seen in Manchester, and that were forming very strong unions and going on strike. Because the family unit, the man is now, he's got the wife and children dependent. He doesn't want to go on strike, he just wants to get his wage. His own little castle. And now they're breaking that up again. And they're going to go back to the community idea, the hive mind.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So
I'd say that is an extension, though, of that community family, that if we are, as we are, social beings, And I know, you can have endless philosophical arguments about that and what you mean by that, but we live in large groups. That's just the way it's been for time immemorial. We get together in large groups. We have division of labor to enable a more comfortable and healthy lifestyle through that division of labor. Yeah. So the community group is there, whether you like or agree with the kind of political ideologies that have been structured out of that truth into forming things like communism and communitarianism. The reality is that you are part of a social grouping.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not. Yeah. You can be antisocial. I'm often accused of being antisocial, but you're still part of a community.
Yeah, I think I'm thinking back to Victorian era when you had the slums and you had communities of people that would be difficult to manage, and then after the Second World War, every man's home is his castle, and you've got a job for life. I mean, no, you're a slave for life, and you've got wife and children dependent on you, and that's when they brought in television to stop people going out to the pubs and to stop that community activity. The way these things coincide, like I said the other day, you've got the Zoom now, so you can, even though you're in lockdown, you can still be with 20 different friends on the same screen. It's no coincidence that these things are being released when they are.
In terms of the TV and entertainment, we can go all the way back to Plato, where he states blatantly, the state has to have control over media and entertainment. He was talking about the amphitheaters and whatever, the kind of Greek plays that they would put on. But the state has to have control over them because they influence the public's mind. And he knew that 2,000 years ago. Yeah? They're still doing the same thing now. And as you're saying, now we've got this technology that enables them to have people live in a cupboard under the stairs, but have the digital illusion of still being part of an extended family or group or community because they're there on the screen, like we're doing now. Yeah.
Yes.
But interesting synchronicity as well. You're talking about that and seeing. So I've only seen a bit of the footage and coverage so far of what they're calling Chaz in the USA, in Seattle, in the center of Seattle, where there's a autonomous zone, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, which is why they've called it Chaz. Yeah, again, anachronisms. Everything's an anachronism. But I think that they're playing that out as a bad example of what happens when government steps back. Yeah, they pulled the police out. They shut down the police station that was there. And the government, when you look into it, it's not that they forcibly, by force of arms, took over a block of the city. No, the governance, the governor, the mayor and whatever, basically handed it to them. And the government pulled back. And now what we get in all the footage on the news media is, look, there's armed people, there's robberies, there's rapes, there's chaos going on, there's destruction. Look how ridiculous it is. An example that we can't look after ourselves by demonstrating this clown world demonstration of what happens when there's no government. Yeah?
But I remember the last time that they did that in New York, and it's true that a lot of these people are fucking clueless. They opened the place up with free canteens. The homeless came in there and fucking stripped the place. Yeah. Oh yeah. And so
that's why I say about rules. It's a mistake that's been deliberately put into people, miseducation by the system about what anarchy means and how you can actually enact an anarchistic system. That's a bit of a contradiction in terms, but you know what I mean. Yeah, and you need rules. There has to be a structure of rules that people agree to, interacting with each other to follow these rules. Yeah, so like as Peter mentioned earlier, no harm or loss. So when you're having an exchange with somebody else, you're both following those same rules. As soon as one or the other party breaks those rules, they're then basically open game. Yeah, in effect,
it's corruption.
Like if you come at me with a gun and demand that I give you my stuff, then you're open target to me, mate. I can pull out my submachine gun and say, no, you give me your stuff. You're going to threaten me with violence. I'll just protect myself with violence. Thank you. Yeah, there has to be that structure of rules. And like I was talking about last week with the concept of sell the police, what they're demonstrating and what they're making a bad example of to deliberately to put in front of the public is like, oh, you think you can look after yourselves? Look what happened when we're not there. Whereas the reality of society is, whether you call it a police force or not, there are always some members of your community that act as peacekeepers, even if it's just the one guy who knows how to look after himself, who deals with the thieves and robbers who come into your village. He's the peacekeeper. He is, in modern vernacular, the police.
Yeah.
That is just an unfortunate truth of reality in the way we share our living space with each other. What they're trying to persuade people is that you can have no concept of that kind of peacekeeper. You either have our police that we tell you have to have, or look at what happens. You have chaos, destruction, death, robberies, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, they've made the word police so so unpalatable. But the truth is, the only way you can do without police is if you become your own policeman. You police yourselves. Yeah, and I've got to go, but yeah, it's about education, Anarchy. It takes a lot of education. I've been on the Freedom Cell Network, which is worth a look. Derek Brose's site. And, I thought some of the people, I thought there were supposed to be anarchists on there. They watch Derek Brose, they watch Corbett Report, and, they hear videos about what anarchy is, but some of them just haven't got a bloody clue. Yeah, it's a bit of a shame. And then there are people who try to use it for themselves, like the anarcho-capitalists who are just greedy buggers that don't want to pay taxes. They're not anarchists, yeah? Anyway, I love you and leave you, right?
Cheers, Gary.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks, Cookie.
I was just going to mention in the chat there, Murph. Hi, Murph. How you doing, man? Just put there, we have the best system we can have. It's the individuals that have corrupted it, and they are not the government, just temporary employees, which is true. It's the corruption and the people we let loose with our trust, the trust that we give them, we place in them to do it. And that's the problem. If we got rid of that, then yeah, we'd be laughing. And that all comes from, again, do we teach the children better? And we, allowing this type of system we've got, and the way that we are messing around with everything at the moment, mentally in people's heads, the whole lot, it's getting, everyone's having a proper going over. Doesn't matter who you are, kid, an adult, you're being subjected with some awful shit at the moment, fear and all the rest of it. And the people at the top there and the ones who are running the system, yeah, we know, we've proven many, many times. And we know, if people listening know, they're all got their hands in, all sorts of dodgy things, and that's the problem. Once you can remove that corruption element and get rid of that, and then the system, we have to choose our new leaders. That's the other thing. We don't need leaders. We just need administrators, people who administrate things rather than lead. Again, it's this new way of thinking. We don't need that guy on a pedestal, or the king and the hijacking your corona in your own sovereign crown and all the rest of it. We don't need that anymore. We're going back to a different way, and probably a way that will see us get through all this shit that's coming with climate and everything. We've got to get prepared. There's 30 years or so we got, or whatever, before we hit some kind of dodgy time in our weather. But we could head it off and easily conquer that if we got ourselves right now. Start forward, and waking up in this process of lockdown, that's gonna, we're gonna see the benefits of that. That's the positivity. People are gonna wake, getting it much more than what 9/11 did. You won't see that just yet, but it will start to come, and people will start questioning and start doing the right things, doing the
what I've been seeing mostly so far, and I've had more direct experience of this as well. I've had some interesting conversations recently with people who'd been somewhat, if not totally, against a lot of the kind of stuff I often talk about. You know,
Mm.
either they just didn't believe me or they disagreed with me for whatever reason. Yeah, but now it's sort of starting to sink in a bit more, maybe because they're seeing it directly for themselves. They're having that self-realization process, which is why the truth can't be given. The truth has to be realized within yourself. You know, you have to see it for yourself, in a cliched way of saying it.
Yeah.
But listening to some of the people, and I'm sitting there thinking, well, it sounds very much like you're in the shock period of this process, you know, the awakening process.
Mm.
So I see that a lot as well when I'm looking at the video footage that the news is covering. I know the news wants people to fixate on kind of like the riot porn, the chaos and all that kind of thing, yeah, so they can politicize the storylines and whatever.
The usual tactics, yeah.
But you watch the people in that video coverage and you can see that beyond the two obvious polar opposites of, you know, the ones that just want to have a physical bust up with somebody in the street to make themselves feel better about their bullshit. But you look at all the other people in the background, and most of them have got a look and an expression on their face, for those that aren't, you know, half covered by a bloody mask. But the expression on their face is mostly of somewhat of shock. You know, they're like, is this where we are now?
Yeah.
You know, and how many times have you heard that phrase or the kind of phraseology of this is so surreal, it's like we're living in a sci-fi movie? Yeah, more and more people are having that kind of process beginning for them. They're in the shock phase of realizing that what do you mean all of this is bullshit, it's a lie, they've been doing what? And they're still in that kind of, you know, when you first get the news, I know I've used this connection a lot. I've talked about it many times. Yeah, they first got the news of the bereavement, and they're in the shock phase of denial. Of no, I don't want to believe it. That's too shocking. What you're telling me, yeah, I just can't accept it. But in the very act of saying that, they're already beginning the process of acceptance because the news has been broached to them. You know, now the bullshit is becoming so obvious that even people who, you know, for whatever their reason, I could, you know, talk for ages about people's reasons for doing this kind of shit. They were in a kind of mindset of, you know, blinkered perception, whatever, where they didn't see it for what it is, or they didn't want to accept what they were seeing. Now it's getting harder and harder for them to sustain the bullshit of the belief in the illusion. Yeah, so many examples of what's going on around them just makes it obvious that, like, most of what they're telling us in the official storyline is obviously bullshit.
And over the past few decades, we've seen the even though the news, well, the agencies that are left now delivering the news are just
dinosaur media
crap, and but that's what people are drawn into because they've narrowed people's awarenesses down. They don't realize there's only a couple of sources where this news comes from, and that's it. And you know, we're not getting the scope on that media. You know, when people do draw into it, they still watch the news, they still will look at the headlines, or even if you choose not to watch the headlines or see the headlines, even if you go to a petrol station, there's the papers outside and your eyes are drawn to the headlines. You know, it's like, you know, what they're trying to push, even when they don't sell the damn thing. Yeah, it's in the environment anyway.
And it's in other people that you're around, you know, the time you share with other people. If their perception is in that zone, then that passes on to others around them.
Yeah.
In a kind of, it is connected. I was going to say in a kind of connected way. Yeah, in this week's subtitle, and I didn't even mention that yet. Because last week I put hashtag sell the police. This week I thought, because this is a phrase I've been thinking about over the last week, and while I was watching Steve on Thursday, Steve Tagoose doing the mystery show on a Thursday night, and I was in the chat box and whatever, and it just came to me then. I thought, hashtag your life matters, because most of these people are stuck in an argumentation of, oh, Black Lives Matter. And if you say all lives matter, that's racist because you're trying to suggest that Black lives don't matter. It's cognitive dissonance to an extreme.
Mm.
And I thought, I've been thinking about it. I thought, well, you could say my life, hashtag my life matters. But then that gets into that kind of selfish, narcissistic, solipsistic kind of mindset. Whereas if you say to people, your hashtag your life matters, that not only makes the person you're saying it to or showing it to feel like you're sort of paying them some kind of respect or credit of like, yeah, I get what you're saying, mate. I get that you feel oppressed and you've had shit happen to you and whatever. So your life does matter. But it also, for the person passing that message on, it helps them think outside of themselves. Yeah, yes, your life matters, but so does everybody else's life matter. Yeah, so rather than letting the system drag your thinking into a pre-created circus sideshow of a polarized fight between two sides, Black Lives Matter or All Lives Matter, let's argue about whether you're allowed to say one or the other. Instead, why don't you just totally subvert the direction the system is trying to take you? Say your life matters. Say that to people. Because if everybody starts saying it, then everybody's life will matter. Because once one says it, I say it to you, your life matters. You say it, that means my life matters as well. Yeah, it goes on and on and on of, I acknowledge your existence and the respect that your life matters just as much as mine does, if that makes sense. Yeah. Maybe it's a little bit cheesy.
Well,
Some people will complain. Yeah.
Just looking in the chat, Chris put life matters as a retarded concept to start with, and he's put atoms matter. Yeah, it's like, where do you take this? This is not. It is right. You know, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, but if you continue with that process, right, eventually you have to ask, because I have done exactly. You have to ask: does matter matter?
Matter.
Because
what is the matter? A man who makes maths. Sorry,
points to the concept of physical matter is an illusion of our own perception processes. Our five senses are keyed to a certain density of energy frequency, which gives us the illusion of physical matter. But there is nothing physical here. What we are and what we're part of is energy fields interacting with each other. There is no physical matter. And I know, that can be a difficult concept and can spin some people out into some bad areas of thinking. Yeah. That is where most of the evidence points to. There is no such thing as physical matter. So does matter matter? No. It's a misdirection.
My head.
It's part of how the education system has processed over the last few centuries.
Yeah.
The modern thinking pattern into a foundational acceptance of materialism. There could be no capitalist, well, I shouldn't really say capitalist, be more specific of saying consumerist. There could be no consumerist hierarchy and cycle of energy production without you accepting at a foundational level that having a physical thing is more important to you than your energetic existence. Because that physical thing, the physicality of it is just an illusion of the energy fields that you are interacting with. But it puts in at a foundational level this hierarchical concept of collection of stuff, materialism. Matter matters more than existence. Do you see what I mean? From a Christian perspective, it could easily be labeled satanistic, because they want you to value matter more than the divine spiritual energy of your Godhead. Yeah, so it's Satan's way of dragging you down and keeping you stuck in this density of matter.
Attachments to them,
yeah. This is why many belief systems, they put across the idea that you need to let go of physical attachment. It doesn't mean you should give away all your stuff. It doesn't mean that you should let yourself die because your physical body doesn't matter and shit like that. No. But the fixation and the amount of intention, the amount of your energy, of your life energy, that is used by the system by convincing you that material stuff matters more than anything else, you will invest a large portion of your life energy into acquiring physical stuff. And all spiritual teachings will tell you that that's completely the wrong direction to go. Because when you pass on from this physical experience, you can't take any of it with you. So why are you collecting it now? It's pointless. You're just slowing yourself down. You're burdening yourself, which is why enlightenment is nothing to do with lights. It's to do with shedding of burdens. Enlightenment. Yeah, lighten the load on your mind. Enlighten means to give up a burden, to drop the baggage.
Yes.
Ment is mind. Enlightenment. Get the baggage out of your mind because it's slowing you down. It's weighing you down.
Yes, it's true. I mean, I remember just clutter. I mean, I don't like clutter and stuff myself. And if I know there's
I'm
like
terrible for it.
everyone's got a drawer, like a drawer in their house, or a few
Yeah.
drawers, or even cupboards that are just stacked, with
The random drawer.
Yeah, like, oh, where do I put this? I'll ram it in there, whatever. And that sort of it's just like putting away, and then you open the cupboard 3 months later and think, oh shit, I've got to get rid of all this. But you're just like putting it off, so you shut the door again, and but it plays. What I'm saying, it plays on your mind. It's like I've got to get rid of that stuff, and it's a clutter in that sense. So getting your life organized is always a good thing, where maybe because like I say, I'm minimalist to a certain degree. I think.
I also think it can actually work in opposition to itself.
Yeah.
Because they often say that the environment you live in reflects your inner world. So if your inner world is somewhat chaotic and scattered, and disorganized, then your outer world will be as well.
Yeah.
But I find that they're missing that there is a reflection that occurs, because I know this is going to potentially connect into lots of esoteric stuff, which may get a bit distracting. I'll try and stick to what I want to say. We are in effect the prism. A prism, Prism. I know sometimes it doesn't sound right because it's got no teeth and whatever. Prism. We are the prism. And in that process of being the prism, that is a process of reflection. Even though the prism splits the light, at the same time it acts as a reflection medium, refraction medium. So in that transition between the inner world of the energy that you are and the outer world experience of this physicality, this stuff we call physicality, I think that means there is a process of not so much inversion, but reflection. So if the outer world is chaotic, your inner world could potentially, more likely, be quite ordered and structured and grounded. So I think this idea of minimalism comes from a very dogmatic mindset that rises out of certain spiritual teachers. I'm not trying to lambast them in any way, but I'm just using them as an example. Things such as Zen Buddhism, where the kind of idea of minimalism is corrupted to such a degree in modern society that people think that if they live in a white box with nothing but a futon and a wooden block for a bed, and they have just a little table with one, calligraphy brush and the bowl of ink and a perfectly clean blank parchment of paper ready for them to do their calligraphy. Minimalism in their physical environment means they will be more pure in their spiritual environment. But I think it's counterproductive, because it actually tricks their own thinking into believing that their external world represents their internal world. So if their external world is perfectly neat and orderly, then they must be a good person. Do you see what I mean? And there's a lot of, there's certainly plenty of evidence to show that there's a lot of psychotic mindsets that have been investigated, and people have committed crimes and they've been caught and whatever, and the evidence left behind that you can study in a kind of psychological fashion shows that many people who have quite psychopathic mindsets are intolerably organized, in the sense of they are OCD. They are absolutely over the top of how rigid their external world has to be. They must be up at 8 a.m. They must have a bath at 9 a.m. They must have breakfast by a certain time. Their pencils must be in exactly the right place on the desk. If you come into the room, you have to walk a certain number of steps before you're allowed to talk. You know, just obsessive levels of order and control over their external world. And they do that because it is an externalization of their own inner chaos needing to be put in order. So because their inner world is chaotic and filled with random terrors, they so desperately need their external world to be perfect and ordered, so it makes them feel like they're in control.
Yeah. And they've built this material world around us, haven't they, Cookie? I mean, through advertising. I mean, that's the main push for people to gather more shit that they don't need, you know, don't spend money and buy a new car or get this or get that or get more furniture or whatever they're getting. You know, it's just this, you know, constant sort of, you know, bombardment of it in your mind, you know, where, you know, because again, advertising, it's how they've done it. Sales and marketing, you know, it's clever, and it's been with us since we've been here, and it's got more and more sophisticated, much better with the internet now, of course, and they can target you individually for anything, you know what you like and dislike, and then off come the ads to you. What do you want next? And that pushes that, like I say, that makes it what it is, if you like. It keeps that that going, that attachment, that wanting the next thing, wanting this, wanting that, and they do play a massive role in that, because we would only naturally, I think, have what we have, need what we need, and it's just this constant like devil on your shoulder saying, buy this, get this, you must have this, get this, discount, get this, get that, and that's how people are being bombarded with it, isn't it?
You'll feel better.
What
do they call it? Consumer therapy.
Retail therapy. Yeah.
You'll feel better. Just buy another one. Just get another thing. Just buy the other thing. You'll feel like you're really doing it.
Yes.
It's like when I think back to some of my attitude back in the 90s, and I was stuck in that kind of mindset of, oh, if I just get this next thing, then it'll fix this part of my life, my problem, my whatever, yeah. And also, when you add into that the levels of the kind of the esoteric symbolic connections. So if you have certain material things, they equate to certain spiritual things. So, you know, you get the kind of trends of like everybody has to have a dream catcher. Everybody has a crystal, you know, stuff like that. It's personified in the external world as being the answer to your spiritual questions. Whereas really, again, like I said earlier, it's just getting your mind, your spirit energy, to fixate on something that is in this physical density, and tricking you into thinking that that thing in the physical density is your stepping stone into the spiritual energetic world, which is not. It's completely the opposite. It's a baggage, it's a burden, it's a sandbag of weight to slow you down. None of these symbols or effigies or icons or mean anything. They're all worthless, because they're only to do with this environment. They're not to do with the eternity of everything.
Go inner, go deep. You know, in that sense, you got. I mean, that's so true, because that's where your answers are. They're all in you.
I think
they are. That's where you get to you connect to yourself, your higher self, call it what you want, and go where, you know, that's the voice in your head you get, which tells you don't do that. It's silly, isn't it? But you do it anyway, and then you get karma, and then you get kicked in the ass. You know, that's how it works. You know, it's like, you know, listen to yourself. You know, that does guide. You do have, you know, an inner, you know, that's there. It's just that they cover that up, or they try and get you to like always externalize to the advice outside. And normally your self will tell you and guide you in the right way, and the right, you know, tell you the right thing to do, and it won't be violent, it won't be, you know, whatever they want, you know, it will be the right thing. And when people do that a bit more, I think we'll have a better chance And these groups are running around, by the way, you know, and the ones that are in London and other cities, they're just small pockets of the crazy people. Again, you know, trying to, you know, make it out like, you know, we're in this race war and stuff. I think a lot of people are understanding now who George Soros is. Thankfully, you know, they're getting on that one, which is good news. You know,
Open Society Foundation. That's the name of his NGO that I couldn't remember the other week.
So people are making links now, seeing this for themselves, and that's all good as well. That's all positive, and people can then start to stop doing that silly thing, going out and thinking they're gonna, you know, okay, people are angry, whatever, but you've got to, you know, look at who you should be directing that to, not each other. It's not each other, you know. It's that's the problem, and that's what they want us to do, as you've been saying, with the way they set it up, with the two sides and all that stuff, left and right, Galen, all the rest of it. You know, people should now look at that and see that and see it play out in front of their eyes. That's the big awakening. Look at it. Look at the way they do this. You know, it's one thing. It's the virus. Then it's race hate. Then it's, you know, it's just how they are funneling the energy through into the way in which they want the next, you know, society to look, which doesn't look very good. So we don't want to go that way. We're going the other way, and we're saying no to that. And like I say, stop hurting each other. You know, look after each other. You know, we're all in this together, guys. Whatever creed, color, whatever, we're in this together, and we've got to sort it out. You know,
learning to discern the inversions. And how that kind of, because, for example, reverse psychology is the use of an inversion as a methodology to trick you into something. And I mean, if you check Jeff Send today, he's covered this quite well in recent times. He uploads a fair bit, though, so this is probably going back several days, if not a couple of weeks. He uploaded a couple of videos from black people talking about how they disagreed with BLM because, as far as they're concerned, they're not oppressed. Yeah, and this is something Bob Marley encapsulated so well in the lyrics.
Yeah, they're awake. Yeah,
emancipate yourself from mental slavery. The very concept of Black Lives Matter reinforces the separation and oppressions of people who have a coloration of skin that means we call them black, even though, you know, they're not. It's not exactly accurate, is it? They're not black, same as I'm not white. You know, it's just a simplification to identify people. Again, there's a good indicator there of how you've been given a label so they can manipulate you via the label. But the very existence of Black Lives Matter reinforces the separation and therefore oppression of black people. Because if you accept the very concept that you need to join something called Black Lives Matters, then that means you already internalized the very concept that you are oppressed. You are oppressing yourself because the system has used reverse psychology on you to trick you into believing, into a cognitive dissonance of believing that by following this protest group, you're going to be released from slavery by the master. Whereas the reality is we are already all equal.
Yeah,
just
and the same
you're a different color skin from me, that doesn't mean you're not a person of mankind. You know, you're another being of mankind.
Yeah,
you just come from an ethnic group that means the coloration of your skin is different to mine.
And
but
they do
still
that.
Bleed red. You still piss and shit and eat and all the other things that I do. So,
but they do the same thing with the right as well. The all them lot, they do the same process. Give them all something to just basically get them wound up, and then they all go out and they're on like an edge because of the lockdowns maybe, and people have gone out and been a bit more.
They needed a vent.
Yeah, so they know
they've had all their football taken off them.
Yeah,
all that kind of thing. There's no going down the pub anymore. They're frustrated as heck. They need a vent. They need somebody's face to punch to make themselves feel better, to let out the stress. And when you then tell them that their iconic figures of history are under threat, then they'll be out in the streets wanting to have a fight with others. Yeah. I know that's generalizing. That's not true of all the people. Certainly not. It's like you mentioned earlier, it's a tiny fraction that resort into physical violence.
Yeah, the ones who are chasing each other around and stuff.
I've seen plenty of evidence of people forming protective groups around the statues or whatever, and they're not violent whatsoever. Yeah. But that kind of thing as well, connection to the one other thing I wanted to mention. Well, it's a couple of other things at least, but it sort of leads into this other thing. The new Karen meme, which I know we sort of touched on before in other broadcasts, but the recent one that I looked at, again, referencing Jeff Censored, I watched his coverage of it, one of the latest sort of versions of that meme that's been doing the rounds. But it makes a good example of how now the mob mind mentality, the hive mind mentality, has taken what was 60 seconds, a minute and a half, maybe 90 seconds of this woman being a bit of a tit, by being a busybody, basically, which there's busybodies in all walks of life. It's not just middle-aged women that are busybodies, yeah? But they're taking that kind of short example of that person's life and personality and turning it into an aggressive act. She was being a Karen. She's one of these new meme stereotype Karen women, and her life has been systematically pulled apart by the hive mind mob mentality in the online environment following the upload of this little short video clip.
No, I haven't seen it. I've been out of touch a bit.
I mean, she didn't exactly say anything really over the top. Like, in my opinion, she was being a bit of a busybody, but at least she was caring about her community, because the reason it all began was she was concerned that somebody was vandalizing her local community. Yeah, basically.
Right.
But she's sort of a bit, it's almost a little bit creepy the way she tries to deal with it, yeah, and it escalates into, oh, hey, look, everybody, here's another example of a typical Karen, middle-aged woman being an interfering, know-it-all, rule dominator, whatever, and her life has been systematically pulled apart by the online mob. Yeah, so the reason I bring that up in reference to what you were saying was because it's currently an example of how the system is very adept. It's had centuries of practice to work these things out, and now, thanks to modern technology, they've got so many options of how they do this kind of thing. The system has become very good at creating a scapegoat for the public's anger and angst to be vented against, so that then the public don't keep their gaze fixed on the actual tyrants that are causing all the shit in your world that you're so pissed off about. So similar to the Black Lives Matter versus EDL fighting over whether a statue should be allowed to stay where it is and shit like, there you go, folks, worry about that rather than worry about the immense lie that you've been sold for the past 3 months that has led to the mass death of elderly people in care homes, as well as potentially a lot of other future ramifications as we go in. Today's the 15th. Today was the first day of the you have to wear a mask on public transport here in the UK, as one example of the future that they're pushing you towards. No, instead of keeping your gaze fixed on those tyrants that are lying to you in such an infantile fashion and creating this bullshit, no, instead you've got to worry about the EDL and the BLM fighting over whether a statue of Churchill is, okay to be where it is or whatever.
Or one person died by police brutality, and you're kicking off. It's like, what about all the other?
One person dying is a war, because they're trying to initiate a race war based on the death of one guy.
One guy, yeah.
But the Karen element as well, it had me thinking, this is something that's sort of been bubbling away in my head for a week or more. I was thinking, why have they chosen Karen? What's the thing about Karen?
What about Trace, Sharon and Tracy? Remember that was a sort of,
in the 90s, Shaz and Trace, yeah. But I think I get the idea anyway. I'm not agreeing with it, but I get the methodology of why they're doing this kind of thing. I get why they seem to want to target middle-aged women. One, it's the feminine archetype. Two, being middle-aged, they're more likely already had children, which means they have a family. So they're attacking not only the family unit by attacking the matriarch of that family unit, they're attacking the very concept of a female matriarchal family carer, you know, somebody who's like, think of it as like the typical, you know, lioness protecting her cubs. The female archetype of that age of woman represents in a very subtle subconscious way that kind of motherhood matriarchal figure. And the system absolutely, as I think you mentioned it earlier about, you know, the kind of destruction of the family. I know Gary was talking about it in sense of moving from the community to the family and then down to the individual. You know, so they want the public to attack that particular community social archetype. But at the same time, it took a while to twig in my head to sort of, you know, for the gears to actually connect and go, ding, you know, produce the result. And I thought, hang on a minute, Ren. I'll do a quick screen share. It might not necessarily help. It might help a bit, maybe, whatever. I'll just stick it up there so you can see, you know. Even though it's Wikipedia, yeah, I know everybody will go, oh, Wikipedia, you can't trust Wikipedia. No, you can't. But, you know, there's ways you can corroborate this kind of stuff. Yeah, from the Egyptian language and religion, Ka, let me scroll down and find it. Well, I've lost it now. There it is. That's why it's next to that image. Ka represents the vital essence, or the concept of the vital essence. In other words, the energetic spiritual essence that gives you your life. It is the life force, basically, your Ka. And then Ren, this is why I think it took me a while to twig, because I'd forgotten about a lot of this stuff. Ren is the Egyptian word and concept of a name, right? So the name of something of living essence or vital essence, or it is the vital essence being put into a name, Ka-Ren. Do you see what I mean? Living essence or vital essence, name. And in the Egyptian religion, the name itself was like considered like a vessel. So if you kept repeating the name, in effect, it gives you immortality. If the people of the future generations remember you because they know your name, you have lived forever, basically.
Amen. I'll say amen to that.
Yeah.
I'm taking the piss. Sorry.
Amen Ra. Yeah. But it just sort of twigged for me. It's like Ren. So have they deliberately chosen that theme? It is almost always universally a female name, yeah, Karen. I'm sure there might be one or two males that are called Karen, but whatever. Have they chosen that name deliberately? Because they could have chosen, like you said, Chaz or Trace, you know, whatever. They could have chosen a different female name, but they chose Karen to create the meme, yeah, that they then get in the energy from the public to enact that meme. So in effect, the Ka-Ren is exactly what it says on the tin. They are getting people to put living energy, their essence energy, into something that is just a name, so that it can become a living golem that they can then use as a scapegoat to vent their angst and anger against. So rather than focusing on the tyrants that are deliberately fucking up your world, you know, or trying to, no, worry about this.
We've got to sort these Karens out.
Karen, in other words, believe in a completely fictitious thing like a corporation, a dead entity that only has its existence because you keep putting energy into it, which is classically the example of a meme, a mimetic. Mimetics only work when people keep repeating them. That's why they're called a word virus or a psychological virus.
Yeah.
So it just made me think of that. So, you know, that's like, it does what it says on the tin. They're there like, oh, we need another distraction, another hate figure. Oh, we better make sure it's something to do with destroying the family so it helps the progression of the agendas. Oh, Karen, yeah, we'll get them to attack anyone called Karen. And we'll get them to have this stereotype image of a woman in her middle ages who cares about her community and environment and blah, blah, blah. I'm not trying to say that people who have a overbearing need to oppress others around them to follow the rules, like a prefect in a school or something like that. People like that have always existed.
But
We
mob
used to-
rule's a different thing, isn't it, Cookie? You got the mob ruling, and that's what we've got here in that sense.
We used to refer to those kind of personalities as little Hitlers.
Yes.
Where I come from, that's what we used to call them. Like, you get the traffic warden who was too big for his own boots. He used to march up and down the street thinking he owned the town because he could issue you with a ticket and shit like
I have
little
power.
Hitler. Yeah. They're not really thinking in and of for themselves. They're just, oh, master says do this, so I march in time, I march in lockstep, I repeat the mantra, I repeat the dogma, and I make sure everybody else around me is doing the same. Remember what I said earlier about a kind of psychopathic mindset that has an absolute need for the external world to fit a certain order.
Yeah.
They can't cope with chaos. They are shit scared of chaos because they themselves cannot cope with it because they haven't connected with their own inner self. But anyway, side digression. The Karen thing absolutely is the mob mind version of that. As I said, we used to call them little Hitlers. It's like, oh, that guy there, the traffic warden, he's a bit of a twat, but you basically give him the finger and say, go away, mate, or whatever. You don't destroy their lives, which is now what's happening with this mob mind hive mentality bullshit, where, like I referenced it the other week, like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, somebody in a crowd points at you and makes the noise, goes, ah, and that's it. The mob just descends on you and your life gets pulled to pieces. But that is the power of that hashtag reality.
Yes.
That's why as well I thought about the kind of hashtag your life matters. Let's try and transmute this energy of destruction that they're trying to use this technology for, and instead turn it into an energy of external care. Your life matters, not
We're
just
all
one
divine,
particular ethnic group or whatever. we all matter.
Exactly. We're all divine sparks, and we've apart from that evil cabal lot, I don't think they are. They're horrible bastards.
In the long run of the whole thing, it does matter though, doesn't it? Because they're an emanation of the externalized process. There's a classic cliched saying of, you will get the politicians you deserve. Rephrase it as, you will get the politicians in power that you tolerate. So if you keep tolerating them, then they'll persist and they'll feel empowered through that. And at the same time, if you dehumanize and demoralize the citizenry that populate that country, fictitious example country, then you will get even worse politicians. Because the politicians reflect the mind and spirit of the population. So why is there Bojo the Clown in power at the moment? It's because people have been so demoralized that their own world seems like chaos, like a clown world, like a circus show. So lo and behold, what do we have in politics? A circus show. We get the politicians we deserve, basically. I don't quite fully agree with that, but I think it's a good way of a generalized description of what happens in unfortunate reality. Yeah? If you tolerate tyrants, you will be subjected by tyrants. And I'm not saying that people should go out there and get physical and blah, blah, blah. Not at all. It doesn't work that way. Again, come back to that perception or that realization that what you're witnessing is an externalization of your own inner process. If you reclaim your own sovereignty, your own inner self, reconnect with your inner self and become grounded,
meditate,
you are your own peacekeeper. You are your own judiciary. You are your own sovereign monarch. You are your own connection to the divine. There is none above you except the creator, the Godhead, or the universe if you're an atheist. Yeah.
Yep. That's the stuff they don't want you thinking about, isn't it? That's why they do all the other.
They want you to fixate into this density, which is the lower chakras, which is, can I eat it? Can I fuck it? That's what matters. Materialism, collection of stuff that make me feel better about myself. Shiny thing, make it all better. Need the government. We need big government to make it all better. I can't do it because I'm not really a living being. I'm just a figment of my own imagination, and I only exist when they tell me I'm allowed to exist.
Yeah.
That's the perception that, again, Bob Marley, emancipate yourself from mental slavery.
Exactly. And move into the heart, and then move into the voice. This is the other, and then move into your proper crown and reclaim your sovereignty.
Yeah.
You know, that's how it works. And people, again, like I say, that information or that type of thinking is deemed, well, you're crazy or whatever. But no, it's, well, look, whatever you want to think. It's your thoughts, they ain't mine. And we know what we know. We know what we know. We don't think or believe. I know what we know. So it's a knowing rather than a believing in that sense. Said that for years, and they'll have you believe it is that material outward world, and that's what controls everything and everything. And it's the absolute opposite. You know, these people who are pulling this cabal lot off, they've moved into, they know what they're doing. They use these magic tricks on us all the time. They've got us bending knees and clapping like monkeys and all sorts of shit, you know, just, you know, beck and call, it seems. And we're all agreeing and doing it, you know.
The one other thing I had in my notes, which again connects into all of this kind of stuff, I think anyway, you know, you might disagree, but I think there's enough there to show it is connected in anyway, whatever. You're saying about, you know, people having to sort of subject themselves to requirements. That we're back to the mask requirements. You know, you must wear a mask. And over the last week, I've been thinking about the kind of dehumanizing effect, because what they're suggesting that the public wear is in no way really about the health, you know, the health of the subject. They're not trying to help you protect yourself from a potential pathogen, an alleged pathogen. You know, they don't even explain the complexities of the differences in the micron sizes of the droplet carrying the virus versus the size of the pores in the mask and so on. And that's even if you go along with the germ theory explanation, blah, blah, blah. No, it's just you're required to wear a face covering. And they say face covering quite often, you know, because they're making that clear distinction that this is nothing to do with scientific proof of a health benefit. If there was, they would have said something along the lines of a certain type of mask that they knew would suit the requirements according to the germ theory arguments of how you protect yourself from a potential pathogen. So like you see the people in the labs where they're wearing the full PPE kit, they're not just wearing one of these surgical face masks, they're wearing a proper breather mask and things like that, yeah? But as far as the government concerned, it's like, no, you're just required to wear a face covering, a mask. They keep saying that, yeah? And what they're mostly pointing people towards, or they're allowing people, you know, this is the behavioural adjustment team. They're nudging tactics. Of,
the nudge thing.
You know, they make you think you're deciding for yourself, but they've created a corral to lead you to that decision. So they know that most people go, what's the fucking cheapest thing that I can just stick on my face so it looks like I'm following the order, you know, following the rules? Oh, these cheapo surgical masks that will basically do literally nothing to protect you. If anything, in many cases, it will cause you more health problems. It will make you unhealthy because having that thing across your breathing all the time and whatever. But at the same time, there is this dehumanizing effect of half of the face being covered. All right. I know in the past, over the years, many people have made this kind of argument in reference to the hijab and the niqab, you know, the kind of East Asian face body coverings that they wear. But those things are worn primarily, anyway, I know this is not 100% true to all of them, but they're primarily worn by choice, and their choice to follow a particular religious doctrine. So those things are not, in most places, they're not enforced by requirement. I know they are in certain areas of the world. Yeah, they're required by their theocratic laws. But that's that argument about them being dehumanized. You can't see their face, you can't see the expression and stuff like. It's not as well founded, because mostly people wearing those clothings are doing so by choice because they follow a particular religion. Whereas what we're being told now is a diktat from the governors on high, from the tyrants on high, saying you are required to wear this face covering. So that is very dehumanizing. That's like telling somebody they have to wear a particular label. Yeah, I know I use a cliched example, but like the yellow star, you have to wear the yellow star. But this is a face covering. So half of the person's features are now covered up, more than half. Because when you look into things like body language, and you look at body language is the whole body, obviously, but a lot of the reading that takes place is to do with facial expressions.
Yeah.
And when you study that facial expression method of reading people's thinking and reactions, I'm guesstimating a bit, but I'd say like 70% plus of the content of the reading itself comes from the eyes and the muscles around the eyes, the eyebrows, the position of the eyebrows and the muscles at the corner of the eyes, things like that. So the majority of the information you subconsciously gather is from that area of the face. But then the other 30+% is the rest of the face, in particular the mouth, the corners of the mouth, the muscles down the side of the nose and the cheek, and the muscles at the back of the jaw. So you see whether somebody's clenching and things like that. So you straight away hobbling people's innate subconscious ability to read each other's faces. You're cutting it in half at least. So you're making people half-faced. And I tried to think of a way of turning that into a phrase, because I was thinking of like Two-Face from the Batman storyline, yeah. But now we've got people that are half-faced, so it's almost like they're half a person. And I chatting with Gary O before we came on live, and he was saying like, yeah, but you can read a lot of emotions from people's eyes, and I agree with him on that. And it helps in a certain way because it gets people to actually make eye contact.
Yeah.
Because now it's like, well, you haven't got a lot else to look at anymore, have you? So you look at somebody's eyes and make that connection with them.
Isn't it interesting though, with the facial recognition technology? Now that's going to maybe have some impact on that effectiveness. They said it was shit anyway, didn't they? About
they're already beyond that point.
Yeah.
And there's a bit of, well, I say a bit, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, because you are talking about basically what is a militarized technology. So there's a lot of smoke and mirrors around it. But for a long time, they've been telling us about how facial recognition is so fantastic. This is the general front of shop storyline that they give to the general populace. Face recognition is amazing. You can have it on your phone. You can log into your bank account using it. You can, in some places in the world, you can now go shopping by just using your face. You walk in the shop, get what you want, and then as you're leaving, you just look at a particular camera and it goes, pa-ching, you are paid.
Yeah.
They've been trying to convince us that it's oh so brilliant and fantastic. But the reality is, as the years have gone by, that it's not actually that good. It's not actually that reliable. It makes a lot of false positives or misidentifications, and it has distinct problems with certain skin tones, especially black people. I think it might be to do with how the light reflects off their skin or something, but the computer software has more difficulty reading their faces than Caucasian faces. So it's not actually as good as they claim. But, and this is where the smoke and mirrors kind of shit comes in, they want the general populace to think that it is, so that it creates a self-policing panopticon kind of effect mindset. But at the same time, they have a lot of other ways of identifying you that don't require them being able to see the totality of your face to do face recognition. They can do voice recognition, they can do gait recognition, they can do body shape recognition. then you've also got the other technological connections to you as an identity. So if you happen to be carrying a device on you, they've got you 100% because they'll just read your device from a distance. They can look at the ISP or service provider records and triangulate you and identify your account numbers and blah, 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 blah. And that's, just some of the ways that they can put all the interconnected information together such that they don't need to see your whole face to ID you. So a lot of the, I've heard people kind of making the argument of like, oh, the rioters with all the looting, they probably just feel they can get away with it because they're wearing masks, so therefore their face is covered. And it's like, the system has got good at IDing people now. It doesn't need to see their whole face. If the system decides to track those people, the contact tracing connection system is very well established now. They'll be able to ID most of the people involved. Yeah. There might be a few that fall through the kind of software cracks, but the majority of people will get labelled, they'll get their ID pulled up.
And with mandatory mask wearing now in England, not in Wales, I'm not sure if it's in Scotland, but it's not in Wales, you don't have to wear a mask on the public transport. Are they fining people if they refuse, or is there? I think they are. I did read something, but I'm not sure if they brought that in.
I only listened to a bit of, oh man, which one was it this time? Which puppet was it they put up this time? I can't think of his name. It wasn't Hancock. It was one of the others. Anyway, I only listened to a bit of it because I've just given up bothering to listen to most of their announcements now. It was basically saying they're going to take a gentle approach to the introduction for the first few days. So basically, people will be let off with a warning, maybe, or maybe they'll have a Karen on the train that will give you a finger wagging and a staring at and saying, "You naughty! Next time, bring a mask."
Just looking at them, shaking their heads like that, like
but he claims
terrible person.
A bit of a gentle approach to begin with, but then yes, it will be fines.
Yeah.
And then the fines will become standard. So basically, if you don't wear it, you'll just get a fine. It will more likely be an on-the-spot fine. Wow. And now, again, thanks to the digitization of a lot of how society runs, that can be something that can be paid almost instantaneously via an electronic transaction. So, you'll have the guard standing over you, basically saying, "Oh, you're not wearing a mask today, sir. That'll cost you an extra £50 as a fine." Yeah. Are you rich enough to ignore the rules? Are you going to pay up and just pay the fine and carry on without wearing a mask and create a two-tier society? Yeah.
Crazy. I wouldn't want to be travelling on the London Underground anyway, wearing a mask and in that heat as well. And some of them stations are awful.
Yeah, it's bad enough as it is, mate. Put a mask on as well. It's
get people keeling over probably.
Well, you will have more space around you because everybody's got to sit spaced apart. Yeah, supposedly.
Well.
Never mind the mask. Just think of all those sweaty bodies rubbing together as we're going into summer. Virus can get in through the pores in your skin. It doesn't have to be inhaled. It can go in through the pores of your skin, through your eyes, etc. So.
Well, I mean, England's opened up, it seems. Wales is still locked down, in the sense. They haven't opened anything yet.
They claim they've opened up. I watched UK Column earlier. I've been watching them nearly every episode now because of all this shit going on. They are doing good coverage of a lot of the bullshit. So I've been checking in with most of what they've been covering. And they showed how, they're talking about how England has opened up again. The shops are open again, folks. But
no one's got any money.
Interesting wording was the shops are reawakening, which I thought was a really, the UK Column guys didn't bring this up because I know they're not exactly, they don't talk about a lot of the kind of spiritual elements to things, but I'm surprised they missed this as well. By saying reawakening rather than reopening, they are implying a living element to the shops themselves, the businesses. So they are reinforcing, this is NLP in practice, neuro-linguistic propaganda, neuro-linguistic programming, the use of manipulation, psychological manipulation in propaganda. By using the word reawakening, they are subtly implying to the reader that a business is a living thing. Remember, we talked about this many times in the past about how they changed the legal standing of corporations a few decades ago, and they gave them the same legal rights as a living person. And there's a fair bit of depth to look into with this, because even when you say living person in the legal system, a person is not a living being. It's not the man. Yeah. So when they call you a person, they are referring to your straw man fictional entity that operates in the legal world. You're not you, the living being. I am not a person. I am a living being. Yeah. My person is the name and identity that they use within the paper world system. Yeah.
A straw man.
So by using that word reawakening, they're giving the public, reading that headline, because it was just a headline in one of the main papers, the subtle implication that these corporations and businesses are living things, and they're stirring back into life thanks to the magic touch of government that has imbued them with the living essence. Man, UK column just really went straight over their heads. I'm really surprised they didn't pick up on that language at all. Maybe they don't, they don't like to cover the kind of spiritual stuff because they can't show hard paper trail evidence to back it up, obviously. Yeah. But just the NLP way of manipulating people psychologically, I thought they would have caught on to that. But they're talking about England businesses opening up again. Yet so far, the images I've seen, if you ignore the headline that the current media is trying to put on it, of like, oh, look at the massive queues. And it's like, no, the rent, that is not even a full shop. I saw some of the pictures, the UK column showed it, pictures from outside Primark. Yeah, because they've been one of the big sort of show things that the media have been following, the reopening of Primark. And there was probably 30 people in a queue. But because everyone's got to stand 6 feet apart, it looks like a really long queue. And the photograph had been taken at such an angle so that you couldn't quite perceive most of the 6-foot gaps between people. Yeah, they looked like they were crowded together a bit, waiting outside the door to go in. But the size of the Primark shop in the image, those 30 people would not even constitute the shop being full on a busy day. So them saying, it's all so busy, the shops are open, it's more bullshit.
Yeah.
Just absolute bullshit that to try and make it look like the magic of government is fixing things for you folks. Don't worry about the fact that we caused the shit in the first place. No, just give thanks to the deity of governance that has magically brought your world back to life.
Spend like crazy and push that inflation rate through the roof. Go on, go for it.
Reattach the Horus's penis, and now they're reinvigorating him with life. Yeah. You will yet again be able to worship at the phallus of business and consumerism.
And all is good, but not for you.
Yeah. You need to pay more taxes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, did anybody notice any significant drop in the price of fuel? I didn't. Where I live, the prices they've gone down a few pence, but nothing major. But considering the price of oil, because all this process, I know we talked about it in recent weeks, the price of oil absolutely crashed.
Tanked, didn't it?
Yeah, to the point of where the suppliers were basically paying the buyers to take it off their hands so they could keep production going.
Yeah.
And yet we didn't see a reflection of that price drop in the actual availability of fuel on the high street, as it were.
Yeah. It seemed more of a sort of supplier type thing, wasn't it? That was going on rather than affecting anybody at this end. They don't want to give you anything for nothing, Yeah. And they have to make their profits. And the taxation on your fuel, which is 80%, isn't it? Or something on fuel. Ridiculous in the UK. 80% tax.
I'm not sure, I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty high.
I know it's high, I don't know. But the actual percentage.
Yeah.
I know it's something like that on tobacco as well.
Yeah.
Synchronistic you're saying that. Rebel saying in the chat, they can't be law anyway, so I ain't wearing one. I've got a Hannibal one with sunglasses just for the pish. And I was thinking of digging out my Ray-Ban glasses because, we mentioned that a few times recently. Put on the glasses. Like in the movie They Live, where he tries to get him to wear the glasses so he can see the bullshit.
Yeah.
I was thinking, it just seems like that kind of time where I should be wearing them all the time and walking around like Roddy Piper, like constantly taking them off and looking at signs and going, doing this as I'm going down the high street. Yeah. Maybe I should get a little box of them and start selling them on the high street. Go, look at this, like, look at that. Wow. I don't think people would fall for that for long, and that would be considered marketeering, profiteering from the crisis.
I was just thinking, Primark. The
slave labor, anyway.
One of the top stores to go to now. Don't you know? It's kind of them and a few other ones.
Asian lives don't matter.
Yeah, them
Forget
and Matalan.
People, or, people in Bangladesh working in slave labor conditions, literally slave labor, to make the cheap clothes that get sold in Primark.
Yeah.
Where's the protests about that? Why aren't they burning Primark down? Why aren't they, Nah, would they all?
No, they're queuing for KFC and lovely Chinese-made goods. So,
that brings us back to the fixation of people's thinking into materialism, such that they're so desperate to have the items, but they can't afford them because the system keeps their economic income very low deliberately. So they have no choice, basically. They may think they have a selection of choice, diversity of availability, but really they end up going and shopping at places like Primark because they still want the item, but they can't afford to actually pay the value of somebody producing that in an ethical way. So instead, they buy the product from somebody that trades slave labor produced goods,
which are crap quality.
Yeah. False sense of consumerism as well. Planned obsolescence, keep the economic cycle turning.
Yeah, well, talking of cycles, if you put their clothes in a washing machine cycle, generally speaking, after about 4 washes, they've pretty much disintegrated, or you've got problems with, cheap shit.
It's been many, many years since I went into a Primark shop. Probably 10 plus years, maybe more at least. Yeah, it's got to be more at least because you're talking like late 90s, early noughties, something like that. Nearly 20 years ago was the last time I went to Primark. And I looked around and I was like, this is shit. I like printed T-shirts and I used to get a lot of stuff like that because it was one of those kind of ways of making my sort of anti-fashion statements. But now most of my stuff is fashionable because cycles of fashion. But
they come back in, don't I? Notice that with some of my clothes, they were fashion. They've come back in.
Keep
some of
them long enough.
Like,
as long as obviously they're well made enough to last that long. Yeah.
I've had that hoodie 20 years. It's like
now it's fashionable again. Yeah. A lot of my clothes I bought because they deliberately weren't fashionable, and I've ended up basically being appropriated into the fashion world, and now all the fucking hipsters look like I did in the 90s, and it's sort of what's going on here. But that's the way the fashion trade works.
We know how. Yeah, and also at the level of the mainstream fashion, they're telling you what to wear, what the new fashions are, what you must go out and now look like. People, mustn't decide for yourself. You have to look a certain way that we say looks good.
But I agree with both of you. I'm unfortunately stuck in a bit of a dissonance because I agree with you that people shouldn't get too obsessed over their appearance, but I also agree with Murph that if you're a bit on the chunky side, don't get those skin tight pink leggings. It's just
no.
That's maybe they just want to entertain their own community.
Some things should never be made or sold, should they? Really? Yeah. Maybe.
Anyway, right. I think considering it's been somewhat of a less sort of detailed, like a normal. I say detailed. I know
yes.
People complain I don't hand out loads of I don't spoon feed you loads of links and stuff like that. but my notes were only like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. And that was it. But the one other thing, which is also in the subtitle this week, and I've left it right to the end because I wanted to have the opportunity to talk about things like we have done before I sort of finished up with this. This is again something that's sort of just bubbling away in my head for a few weeks, and it sort of came up eventually. It had an opportunistic moment to be birthed into the world, kind of thing. It's playing on the lyrics from the old song "I Fought the Law." Yeah, I fought the law and the law won because all the the riots that were happening and whatever.
Yeah.
And it just occurred to me when I was thinking through those concepts of the externalization of your own process, and a lot of what they're doing in the external world is emanating the conflicts that is in a lot of people, not necessarily organically, it's been put there by the system, but the law represents that inner law of knowing this reality for what it is and connecting with yourself and grounding and stuff like that. So you fighting the external law is like you trying to fight your internal self. And anyway, I'm long-winded explaining. I fought myself and myself won. If you're in constant conflict with yourself, you're not helping yourself. You're just slowing yourself down. No,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to suggest that in a narcissistic way that means you are self-justified in whatever bullshit you choose to do. Like we were talking about earlier, which is why I wanted to leave this point till the end. Yeah? There are rules. If we are going to have this experience of this reality, which involves other beings being here as well, you are not existing in a solipsistic vacuum. There are other entities here as well, other beings, living beings around you. So we're living in a shared environment. If you're going to do that, then you have to have some rules of conduct between each other. So as we mentioned earlier, the no harm or loss, the ancient common laws of cause no harm or loss to others, and you'll all have a better life living together. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're in conflict in that external world in that fashion, you are reflecting your inability to deal with the reality that you are in conflict with yourself in your inner world. Yeah. So if you're fighting yourself, you will perpetually fight the external world as well. You, in whatever form, you will find an enemy out there that will make you feel, oh, I've got to defeat them to fix the world. And what you're actually doing is externalizing your own inner process. But I'm not, please don't get it wrong. I'm not trying to suggest that means you just leave the tyrants to do what they do and just sit cross-legged and go, I'm going to be better when I stop fighting myself. No, it doesn't work that way. Yeah. That's too much of a
It's just dealing with your
simplification.
own stuff, isn't it? It's dealing with your own personal, what's in your life, your family,
Your
this
own
type
inner
of stuff,
shadow.
your own inner stuff, getting that sort of, forgive them and forgive yourself. That's important. It's just, we all make mistakes and we all fuck up, but
forgive
move
yourself
on.
and do better.
Yeah.
Every mistake is a potential learning process, learning
Exactly.
opportunity.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean every sin is forgiven automatically, not at all. But the beginning of the helping yourself, the beginning of that process of helping yourself is realizing that you are in an unwinnable war if you're fighting yourself. So if you're constantly in conflict in and of yourself, you're fighting yourself. I fought myself. Guaranteed yourself will win in one way or the other. At the end of your life, you're still going to be there, you're still going to be at the end of your life. So did the whole of your life get consumed with you just constantly in an inner conflict with yourself about this, that, or the other?
Or did you forgive yourself and move forward?
Yeah. And that's why I thought it was appropriate to put those two things together in the subtitle. # Your Life Matters. And I fought myself and myself won. I think if you just
it's true that
those things help you in your balance and reconnection of realizing that you yourself are here and you need to resolve and do your own inner shadow work and things like that. And at the same time, there is this external reflection that is also part of this experience. It's not an illusion. This is here. It's part of the process. The illusion is the concepts of the value of materialism and
material
stuff like
world.
that.
Yeah.
The things, the value system that the system itself indoctrinates us into following and desiring. That is where they sap your energy and draw it out like a vampire, and they use your energy to build their Babylon. I know it sounds a bit cheesy and cliche, but that is what is happening.
Yeah.
Stop feeding them your energy, and the Babylon of destruction will start disappearing into the ether where it belongs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thanks for joining in, right? Thanks to Gary for joining in earlier. Where he is at the moment in Spain, there is a curfew sort of, the internet cafes close earlier than they used to, so that's why he's not able to hang around for the whole show like he used to do. But thanks to him for joining in earlier, and thanks to everybody else that were joining in. Hello to everyone in the chat room. I was just trying to scroll it up to see. It doesn't include the whole chat room again.
It doesn't, never does, Cookie, on that.
I'll say hello to the people I can see at the moment. If I miss you out, it's nothing particular. It's just because of the way the chat room's gone. John T.I., hello. And Paula, hello. And Dot, the Dotty, the artist formerly known as Dot, hello, right. I'll scroll down quick. Said hello to Stewie earlier. Linda Cloud, hello. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, we used to run the snake oil salesman out of town. Yeah. That was the way the community can function, used to function, can still function. In some places it does still function, but yeah, the system prefers that power to be taken away from you. Canao, hello. Yeah, the UK citizens have for the most part been Primarked, yeah. It is the popular fashion brand at the moment. Yeah. The Rebel, hello. And you know me, hello. New mask as a smart meter for measuring carbon footprint. Yeah, though I know maybe you're saying that as a bit of a joke, but you never know. They might charge like a surcharge for certain types of masks that collect carbon or some shit like that. Maybe they could turn it into a whole green agenda bullshit, saying, "Oh yeah, wearing masks helps fight the greenhouse effect. Collecting all that carbon in the mask, we can reprocess it."
The Greta mask. No, let's not go there. Yeah,
oh man, you just gave me a totally frightening mental image there of a village full of Gretas. Just everyone, everywhere you look is Greta's face. Yeah? That'd be a terrifying flash mob to pull off somewhere one day. Get everybody to have a cardboard cutout of her face and just turn up somewhere and start doing a little dance like that. Krishna, hello. Thanks for joining in, right? Hope you're not too busy at work. If people are still working at the moment, I never know anymore because a lot of places are shut. A new being, hello. Thanks for joining in, folks. Thanks for tuning in and giving us your attention for a couple of hours, because when it comes to it, that is the thing that is the most valuable thing in this existence, is your attention, because that is your pure energy being exchanged with others. So South, hello. I think I said hello at the start, but say hello again as I'm scrolling down the chat room. And thanks to all the new subscribers. If you are a new subscriber, I know often the way I talk about things and the way I present things may seem a bit overly complicated and long-winded and rambling and confusing. But if you have the patience and you give it the time, you'll see that there is an order to the stuff I talk about and why I talk about it in the way that I do and things like that. And like we were talking about earlier, sometimes the seeming chaos and confusion can actually be an external reflection of an inner peace and order. So don't be afraid of chaos. Chaos itself is not your enemy. You are the point of order. Point of order. But that's a lot of what the system does. A lot of the controllers, the cabal, the people that would like to think they are in power, the neo-pharaohs and whatever, they're often referred to as control freaks because they have an abject fear of being unable to cope in moments of chaos, because their mindset is so fragile that they need a certain order to carry out, because otherwise they're scared that their world is being destroyed. Whereas, a lot of what we experience in life is a sort of a balance of order and chaos. There is the seeming chaos of the universe. It's not really chaotic, but it seems that way. Our perception sees it as just a mass of stuff all happening at once. But there is order to things, and that includes you yourself. Yeah. So don't succumb to their fear. Don't let their fear infect you. And
Yes.
keep giving them the finger. Telling them, no, thank you. We're not interested in your bullshit. I know it's easy for me to say I'm in a situation where I don't have to go to work wearing a mask and all that kind of shit. But everybody does what they can, where they can, with what they have at hand. So if you're in a situation where you can, take the opportunity to speak truth to power and say, nah, it's not you, mate. Your masks are bullshit, and do so. Yeah. And if you're worried that you're going to be, punished in some fashion, then think carefully whether you decide to do it or not. Yeah, anyway, I'll shut up before I start rambling all over the place, and then we won't get anywhere. So thanks again, folks. We'll be back again. Well, I say we, this show will be back again next Monday. Same time, same bat channel. And we'll be back on Wednesday night on the Reality Chat channel to do the Reality Chat on the Wednesday night.
Yep.
And then Steve Tagusi's on the Thursday night. I know I mentioned him earlier. And don't believe the bullshit. Don't believe the hype. There's plenty of good stuff going on. There's plenty of people pointing out the bullshit, and there's a lot of evidence to back up the revealing of that bullshit. So don't feel you're alone in a world of chaos. You're not at all. The system very much wants us to think it's all descending into chaos at the moment. That serves their plans, serves their agendas. So don't fall for it. We'll see you again soon. Be
Thanks,
careful
Cookie.
out there. Thanks, mate. I'm going to click the button. Cut cheese.